All right, questions for this week. The first thing is, how do you approach a situation of someone who believes in something other than Jesus? They tell you your religion is false because it's just too easy to be saved. The answer to that is you approach them with the message of Jesus Christ, his death, burial, and resurrection. Did Jesus rise again from the dead? If he did, then his message is true, in which case there's no other competing religious idea in light of the historicity of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. I think in that case you have the individual have to decline or deny that Jesus Christ actually rose again from the dead. If they deny the resurrection of Jesus, if they say, no, he didn't rise again from the dead, then I would present them with historical facts. There's a lot of approaches to that. The New Testament, in addition to that, there's several good apologetic works. Lee Strobel's book, The Case for Christ, things like that. Ravi Zacharias has some good ones on this. And so the historicity and the teaching and life and ministry of Jesus draws us to conclude that the Bible is true, that the teachings of Jesus are true. So it's not about your opinion about how hard or easy it is to be saved. It's about the historical, actual events in time and space that took place in the person of Jesus Christ. So I would point that person to the person of Jesus Christ. The question here isn't their opinion about how hard or easy it is to be saved. The question is, did Jesus Christ rise again from the dead? If he did, then a bunch of other things fall into place after that. Secondly, someone asked about their cousin who's going to marry his gay partner. Should they attend the wedding? If they are, would they be condoning homosexuality and gay marriage and or denying Christ? Boy, this is a real challenge, because on the one hand, we go all kinds of places that we don't intend to endorse every aspect of life. For instance, we'll go to restaurants that may sell hard alcohol, hard liquor, and we think maybe that's not the best. Or we may shop at a store that has certain philosophical or theological worldviews that we don't share. And so the question is, to what extent do we refrain in our public life from things that might constitute a stumbling block for others, and also maybe even present us in a light that we don't like? And the answer to that is some of this is on the conscience of the individual. We can't specifically tell every single person. There's some obvious things. For instance, I don't think a church member should potentially go to certain adult establishments. That's clearly would be a violation of the Scripture and would clearly be a stumbling block to others. Clearly, to someone going to a Pixar movie, we would all say probably that's not going to cause anyone to stumble. So there are things, say, oh, well, Christianity's not false because I saw so-and-so down at the movie Up or something like that. So the in-between those, in this case, you're related to this person. Going as a family member and trying to encourage them is not a impossible thing to think through. The flip side of it is also not impossible to say, wow, that might be endorsing something I can't condone. So what I would say to that is, ultimately the conscience of the individual has to make this decision. If you decide I can't go because of what my conscience tells me about how that might affect my perception as a believer and my walk with Christ, then I would say the treatment of the couple, though, should be with enormous amount of grace and not a long lecture on their life. That would just be rude, and I don't want someone lecturing me like that. That doesn't help the gospel, and I don't think that's our best bet. I've seen a lot in the last few days of Facebook posts and links to articles and comments by individuals that are harsh about this issue, so much so that I almost cringe a little bit and think, wow, that's probably not in our best interest to be so angry about these things. And then on the flip side, I've also seen posts that basically say all Christians should endorse this particular worldview, and if they don't, they're not living a Christian life, which is also out of bounds, way too harsh, that kind of thing. So I would just say that whatever response we have, which should be done with grace and gentleness. I do think it's not an unreasonable thing to say, I'm going to avoid the wedding because I think it looks like we're condoning or endorsing a particular worldview that we don't think we can endorse. But I would also say, if you're going to avoid the marriage or the wedding, that the way of handling that should be done with a particular measure of grace and not judgment and condemnation. And so if though a person decided, well, we're going to go to the wedding, though we're not, we morally think it's not right, we also still think we love these people, we think that we want to be able to encourage them. I also don't think that other believers should condemn someone over that decision, because it's not an easy or obvious choice. So anyway, that's what I would say about that. How does the church decide where to go on mission trips? The answer is we kind of follow the leading of how doors are open and closed, where we think our gifting best maximizes our use of resources and time and energy, where we have the best gifting that parallels the best needs. So for instance, in Mexico, obviously we do some ministry there because we have good translators within our congregation. We do medical dental work because we have a couple of docs in our church and a dentist in our church and some dental hygienists in our church. And so that makes sense. We do some children's related things like helping with VBS and Vallehermoso, where we do soccer camp as a support of their VBS. So we decide on those things based on our gifting, relationship with individuals that we trust in those situations. Theologically, do we align closely enough with them where we wouldn't feel like we were doing things that were outside what we hold as a congregation? All of those things go into deciding about where we go on mission trips. We're looking for opportunities, open doors, places where we can minister, help, and encourage without doing any harm to that ministry or drawing undue pressure or undue attention to a particular ministry. I guess the long and short of it is that we look for open doors that are consistent with our gifting and with our sense of leading by God to those places. So good question. All right, those are the questions from 717. God bless you guys. Have a good week.